to the Football Tribe YouTube channel. I welcome back from that action at the Vitality Stadium, where Bournemouth shared the scores with Manchester United in a 1-all draw. So let's get into all that action in just a bit. If you can indulge me, just our audio, because these days, as you very much know, we are so cautious on getting it right. You know, because we've burnt our fingers a couple of times. And to avoid those kinds of circumstances, we're better off testing it out before we get on here. And but but again, Manchester United dropping more points. They will be happy to take a draw, because really, yes, I think we're good to go on the volume right there. I think we're good. We're good to go on that front. I can see everything does check out properly, and yeah. So, anyways, like I was saying, Manchester United will be the happier side to take a point because they looked unspirited, they looked dull, they looked slow. It was that kind of game on a Super Sunday opener at 4 p.m. But it was Anton Semenyo that opened the scoring there in the first half to give AFC Bournemouth the lead. That almost turned out to be a match-winning goal, but I mean, the manner in which they lost those 2 points, it will pretty much feel like a loss, given how much football they were able to play on the day. Because I thought they were always the better side on the day. They started on the front foot, both the first half and the second half. But by the time the ball came, just a minute shy of the half-hour mark, Evan again, United tried to play out of the back. They pressed high, won the ball back. Evan Nilsson makes a small lay in for Anton Semenyo, who, strikes that ball into the back of the net beyond the reach of Andre Onana. And it was 1-0, which remained the scoreline for the majority of the game, even when in the 70th minute, Evan Nilsson was given a straight red card. Now, of course, it became a straight red card after the incident being reviewed by the video assistant referee, their committee or team, which I thought was quite unfair to Bournemouth, especially in the context of the game. I do feel that the context of the foul in itself, was it a bad foul or a dangerous foul? Yes, that it was. But was it intended to be? No, I do not think it was, because when you watch this incident in itself, Evan Nilsson does slip, which then changes the course of his actual intended tackle, and then it ends up being a higher boot as opposed to what he had intended to do. Now, the biggest fool in the game of football, as far as referees are concerned, is the discretion of the referee to use his common sense to make a pass judgment on an incident. And it's almost as if it's gospel truth for referees in England that when you get sent to the monitor, you must change your decision. I beg to differ. We saw something, we've seen one too many times where the referee is sent to the monitor and he does not change his decision and he retains his, on-field decision. We saw that at the Africa Cup of Nations that was played in January. That was January 2024 for the 2023 Africa Cup of Nations edition that was won by Ivory Coast. We've seen it multiple times in the UEFA Champions League. The referees get sent to the monitor, they review an incident, and they retain their on-field, decision. Tarusha, thank you so much for tuning to the broadcast. You're much appreciated, my brother. Kindly like the broadcast, kindly leave me a subscription. If you're new on the channel, Robert Kesakos is my name, and you're on the Football Tribe broadcast. So, like I was saying, it almost felt like the VAR, first of all, failed the referee because they should have, I would want to believe that they would have let the on-field decision stand for the fact that the player slipped in an attempt to make a tackle, which then changed the course of the tackle itself to end up as a high boot as opposed to what Evan Nilsson could have intended. But regardless, it ended up being a red card. Bournemouth had to play the last 30 minutes of the game with a manless. I said 30 minutes because there was 10 minutes of added time. I do not know what justified the 9 minutes that was added, but that's part of football. Again, it's the discretion of the match official. And then in the 96th minute of added time, Rasmus Hoyland, in the chaos of the box there, he does score to restore parity, to rescue a point to Manchester United, one that they did not deserve on the day because on the in the 59th minute, Bournemouth came so close to doubling their lead. They hit the woodwork from a free kick, and they looked the much better side of the two sides across the entire game throughout. So I thought they had deserved all 3 points from this game, but that was not to be on the day. But anyways, allow us to leave that at that because our time is fast spent. We are headed into those double fixtures between Tottenham Hotspurs versus Liverpool at Anfield. Then we do have a fixture between Nottingham Forest and Man City at Wembley Stadium. That's in the FA Cup semi-finals at the second tie after yesterday's 3-0 victory for Crystal Palace versus Aston Villa. So we're trying to determine who will beat Crystal Palace in the final. Like I did speak yesterday in our lengthy preview of the weekend fixtures, we did talk about the Crystal Palace side that made it to the finals of the FA Cup back in 2016 and lost by 2-1 to Manchester United. Manchester United that finished the game a man less after Chris Smalling's red card. That was the Manchester United that was under the charges of Louis van Gaal. But in the aftermath of that very fixture, when they won the FA Cup, the Dutch man was shown the exit at Old Trafford. He was sacked. So it's pretty quite historical. But anyways, at Liverpool, the scenes are as you would expect them. The fans did gather outside the stadium in large numbers to welcome their team, to welcome the manager, Anna Slot, as their team kept on Tottenham Hotspurs in a very pivotal game for them this season, a game in which they get to clinch the Premier League title if they can beat up against Tottenham Hotspurs or if they can manage to go out of that game because all they need is just 1 point to be confirmed the 2024-2025 Premier League champions. Contrary to a couple of seasons gone by in which we had, I think for 3 out of the last 5-6 seasons, we've had the title decided on the final day, and they get to clinch that title with 4 games to spare, which would be quite incredible. Of course, none of us gave Anna Slot the chance that he would guide Liverpool to the Premier League title this season, given that he was a new manager coming in to fill the big shoes of a departed Jurgen Klopp and that kind of thing. But it looks like he's really used very well the foundation left by Jurgen Klopp to guide Liverpool to the top of the Premier League title. It goes without saying that he did not have to sign many players besides Federico Chiesa, who has spent majority of his Liverpool spell out injured and that kind of thing. But as far as the game is concerned, here are the starting lineups for both teams. Liverpool do have Alisson van der Beek and goal. They have Quentin Alexander-Arnold, who scored the goal against Leicester City when they were beating Leicester City last weekend by a goal to nil. And then Ibrahim Konate, Virgil van Dijk, and Andy Robertson. Now, earlier on, I did speak about Milos Kakes, the Bournemouth left back, who is being targeted by Liverpool as a potential backup or replacement for Andy Robertson. So Andy Robertson does that this game. Ryan Gravenberch and Alexis McAllister in that midfield. Mohamed Salah, Dominic Szoboszlai, and Cody Gakpo form the 3 there because it's a 4-2-3-1 kind of system with Luis Diaz leading the line there as the main man on target. On the side of Tottenham, they do have Guillermo Vicario, they have Destiny Udogie, Ben Davies, Kevin Danso, and Dejan Space. Ben Davies and Kevin Danso are probably going to be ripped apart by this forward line of Liverpool because when you look at Mo Salah, Cody Gakpo, Luis Diaz, all very pacey players. Anyways, in midfield, they do have James Maddison, they have Achai Gray, they have Lucas Baval, Bagval, and then Brennan Johnson, Dominic Solanke, and Matthias Taylor do lead the front for Tottenham Hotspurs. On the bench, Liverpool do have Chris, yes, on the bench they do have Christian Romero. Sorry, for Liverpool they do have Kelleher as their goalkeeper. They do have Kostas Timikas. They have Joel Quash, and then they do have Wataru Endo. They do have Curtis Jones, Harvey Elliott, Darwin Nunes, Federico Chiesa, as well as Diego Jota. On the side of Tottenham Hotspurs, they do have Christian Romero, Pedro Porro, Mickey van der Ven, Juvis Bissouma, Dejan Kulusevski, Pape Matza, Richarlison, and Wilson Odegaard. Now, I think when you look at Tottenham, the way Ange Postecoglou has assembled this team, it's quite pretty clear that he has Bodo Glimt on his mind because when you give players like Juvis Bissouma a rest and you do not start them in this kind of game, Pape Matza, and then players like Dejan Kulusevski, who I think is arguably one of the most very accomplished players in that Tottenham Hotspur side. It does really communicate that they do have their sights or focus on Bodo Glimt, who they do face in the semi-finals of the UEFA Europa League. That will be due on Thursday. So I think that competition is what they are looking at entirely as their route back to European football next season. Because if they can go ahead to win it, pretty much as we've been saying for the case of United, then they get a chance to qualify for next season is UEFA Champions League. But also their season does get to end with a piece of silverware, pretty much in what we had not anticipated. But remember, at some point in the season, Ange Postecoglou did say that he always does win a title or a trophy in his second season with a club. So we'll wait to see what the Australian international can conjure out in guiding Tottenham to a piece of silverware. Anyways, the Liverpool game does kick off in about 17 minutes from now or 16. They're about just as much as that of Man City. So the kind of mood we expect at Anfield, we do expect a very electric mood. We do expect fans to be their loudest. We do expect to chant it all out because I get the feeling that that they will do whatever it takes to beat up against Tottenham Hotspurs or to get at least that 1 point that they need to be confirmed Premier League champions this evening. Anyways, so we'll leave it at that. Okay, maybe my score prediction probably a 4-1 thumping for Liverpool to beat up against Tottenham Hotspurs. It's usually a very high scoring fixture, so that's why I'm going with a very high scoring prediction there. The other game I want us to look at briefly or to look at the starting lineups is that game between Nottingham Forest and Manchester City in the FA Cup semi-finals because the lineups are already out. We do remember that Nottingham Forest did beat up against Man City by a goal to nil in the return leg fixture that was on March 8th, and then Man City did beat up against Nottingham Forest by 3 goals to nil in 2024. Yeah, but here is the team news or the lineups regarding the two sides. Nottingham Forest, under the charges of Nuno Espirito Santo, have Matt Sells in goal. They have Zachi Abbott. They do have Nikola Milenkovic, one of the standout, signings of the season and centre backs, as well as Moriro, again another standout player in this Nottingham Forest that nobody expected would be even fighting, finished within the top 4 or top 5 at the very best. And then they do have Harry Toffol to complete that backline of 4. Then in the midfield, it's Nicolas Dominguez and Danilo Oliveira. Then ahead of the midfield double pivot is Callum Hudson-Odoi. This one has been a big match player. Morgan Gibbs-White and Elliot Anderson, while Chris Wood gets to lead the lines. Am I surprised that Anthony Elanga has been not given the nod to start this one? A little bit, but again, it goes to the conservative setup of the manager in Nuno Espirito Santo when facing such big teams. He normally goes with the conservative strategy thereof, having this kind of play. So because of that double pivot, he because usually it will be okay if it was going to be he was going to be less conservative. It will be Nicolas Dominguez alongside Elliot Anderson in that midfield, and then Antonio Elanga gets to occupy the other flank. But it is what it is. On the side of Manchester City, they do have Stefan Ortega in goal. They do have Nico O'Reilly. This one has been has scored in Man City's I think last two games versus no in I think in the last three thereabout because he did score against Everton and then he scored against I think Crystal Palace in that 5-2 victory. I stand to be corrected on the second one, but he's been quite in goal scoring form. Anyways, Nico O'Reilly, Josh Covardio, Ruben Diaz, and Matthias Nunes. Matthias Nunes did score the winning goal versus Aston Villa in midweek this week when they were beating up against Aston Villa by 2-1. Rico Ruiz in midfield alongside Mateo Kovacic. That's where I think I do have my doubt. Not that Rico Ruiz is not a good player, but versus Nottingham Forest in such a pivotal game, when you left Kevin De Bruyne and Ilkay Gundogan on the bench, really does beg, it doesn't really sit well with me. Anyways, ahead of them is Jack Grealish, Bernardo Silva, and Savinho, and plus Omar Mamosh to lead the lines. As we did indicate to you, Man City do have some injuries, including the lead striker in board Erling Haaland. Of course, we know about Lobby, suffered that anterior cruciate ligament injury. We do have Nathan Aki suffered a broken toe. John Stones struggles with a thigh injury, while Ederson Morales did suffer a groin injury. On the side of Nottingham Forest, Ola Aina is the notable absentee through a calf injury because Ola Aina is one of their good players in that defense. But anyways, on the bench, they do have, this is for Nottingham Forest, they do have Carlos Miguel, they have Morato, they have Ibrahim Sangara, they do have Taiwo Awoni, that's the striker, they have Alex Moreno, they have Jota Silva, Anthony Elanga, Roman Sosa, and Willy Boly, yeah, the center back. On the side of Man City, yes, on the side of Man City, Ederson has made it to the bench despite having recovered from that groin injury that I mentioned. And then Jeremy Doku, Kevin De Bruyne, Ilkay Gundogan, Victor Reis, for those of you that remember, is the young defender that they did sign in January from Paramides there. Alongside the likes of Pushanov, Nico Gonzalez, who, by the way, is also on the bench. Again, it begs the question why Nico Gonzalez gets to sit on the bench and you start with Rico Ruiz, but that's for manager Pep Guardiola to explain or to understand better. Then Manela Kanji, Pushanov, Phil Foden, and Nico Gonzalez complete Manchester City's bench. Nottingham Forest versus Man City. What's my prediction? I get the feeling it's going to be a very entertaining game, a very lengthy one. Nottingham Forest will sit back and wait to catch Man City on the counter. They'll sort of try to soak whatever pressure Man City will try to throw at them. But I do get the feeling that Nottingham Forest have an edge over this one. And not because they are a better team than Man City, not because that they will want it more than Man City, but I get the feeling that the manager, Nuno Espirito Santo, knows the kind of game to play to frustrate a manager like Pep Guardiola. But should Man City get that high goal, then it could really open things up for them against Nottingham Forest. So do let me know what the predictions are, guys. On that particular one, Crystal Palace are already in the final. I'm going for Nottingham Forest winning it by 2-1 to make Crystal Palace in the final. That's my prediction. Do not bet your arm on it. I do not take it to the bank, but that's my feeling. That's my prediction. Do give me your predictions down in the comment section and let me know what else you think we should discuss in the context of this game. Karusha, thank you so much. You've been with us for the longest, I think, amongst those that were able to join us for this live broadcast. Much appreciated, brother. Anyways, before we close this broadcast out, In the Spanish La Liga, Villarreal is still 0-0, 46 minutes with Espanyol. In the German Bundesliga, Union Berlin is still 1-1 with Bochum, while Werder Bremen and St. Pauli do come at 6:30. In the Italian Serie A, Como have beaten up against Genoa by 1-0. Remember, Como are under the charges of Francesco Sola Fabregas there. He's doing pretty good things for Como because that victory has sent them 11 on the Serie A table with 41 points. I do remember an interview in which Thierry Henry was speaking, who is a minority shareholder at Como, because remember, even Cesc Fabregas is a shareholder at Como, was saying that their goal was to, avoid relegation this season, and they pretty much achieved that. Then Venezia did lose to AC Milan by 2-0, while Fiorentina did beat up against Empoli by 2-1. Inter Milan did lose to AC Roma by 1-0. That's quite a stunning result because it's not one that I had seen coming. Soule was the one on target for AC Roma. That's a very significant result in regards to the Scudetto because Napoli were level on points with with Inter Milan prior to this game weekend. At 7 p.m., Juventus are going to be up against Monza, while Atlanta will be up against Lecce at 9:45 p.m. While Napoli, at the same kickoff time, will be up against Torino. Now, should Napoli win that game, they will be moving up. In fact, they are already up. They're leading the table. But should they win that game, then it means they will go 3 points ahead of Inter Milan with 4 games left to play. So the Scudetto is sitting up there. Because remember, Inter Milan do have that midweek fixture against Barcelona in the semi-finals of the UEFA Champions League. I think Simone Inzaghi may have looked to prioritize that, but it doesn't look to be the case because he did start his best starting lineup. I can see Jan Sommer was in goal, Benjamin Bovard was in that backline, as well as Francesco Acerbi, and then Carlos Augusto, Matteo Damian, Fratesi, Hakan Noglu, Nico Barrera, Federico Di Marco, Marco Arnautovic, and Paulo Martinez. That's not his very best of starting 11s, but because usually you'd expect players like what's his name? His name eludes me. Povard. But Povard started. Yes, Povard started. But yes, it's Marcus Thuram. That's the second name, the name I was looking for. Marcus Thuram to lead the lines alongside Lautaro Martinez. But it was Marco Arnautovic, the former Stoke City and West Ham player, for those of you that don't remember him. Anyways, guys, allow me to wrap it here and wish you a wonderful evening. Enjoy those games. Man City, Nottingham Forest is going to be my focus because I do get the feeling that it's going to be a routine win for Liverpool versus Tottenham. Our lighting is getting poorer as we continue this, so allow me to close it here and wish you a wonderful evening. Bye-bye. Enjoy those games.